Hey everybody, Maggie Massey here today for Studio Calico. I'm giving you a little bit of insight on how this layout came together and discussing just a few tips and tricks about how to mix patterns on your layout. So this layout was created with the March 2015 Odyssey kits, and when I first opened my kits and saw all the beautiful colors and patterns, I was so excited because I love mixing patterns and mixing colors on my layouts. I came across this paper as soon as I opened up my kits and fell in love with this design. It's just so darling. I love the sketched floral design on this paper. I turned the paper over and I saw this design on the back, and I fell in love with this design as well. I love this kind of really muted mint color, and they look like perforated triangles almost. I love the way that looks. I had only one sheet of this paper and I didn't want to waste anything, so I decided that I would just cut the paper in half and use both sides of this paper for my background. Now you'll see that these background patterns are a little busy. Obviously this one's a little busier than this one. And I actually have some other patterns going on this layout as well. And I just want to give you a few little tips on how to do this without having the patterns compete with each other on your page. So here are a few quick little things to remember. If you're going to mix patterns on your layout, make sure that the colors that you're using are complementary. One really easy way to do this is to use papers from the same collection. The designers go through a lot of work making sure that the colors work together, that the designs on the paper work together. And if you use different papers from the same selection, chances are you're going to find two that work really well together, and you don't have to do a whole lot of work figuring that out. Something else you want to remember, in addition to making sure the colors complement each other, is that the designs complement each other without competing with each other on the page. One way you can do this is to make sure that the motifs or designs on the paper are different in size. At least that two motifs that are touching each other are different in size. You'll see on this page that the flower design and this triangle design are pretty much the same size. They are two different designs, so that works there, but they are pretty much the same size. The thing that makes them okay to use is that I have this smaller motif, washi tape, right down the middle. So it's breaking those two patterns up, and they're not touching each other, and so they're not competing with each other on the page. You'll also notice that I've used this design here on my page. The polka dots here are a completely different design. They're a smaller motif than these two designs are, so we don't have to worry about that. And this big bold color makes them stand off the page, and it's not a whole bunch of crazy different colors, which would not work as well with the floral motif. It's just two colors, one bold color that looks great with the navy. The yellow looks great with the navy, so we don't have to worry about those two competing. When we come down here to these different designs that I've used, these papers were also included in the kit. Studio Calico does a great job of putting kits together with similar colors, similar ideas, similar designs, so everything fits together really, really well. And here you can see, even though this floral design is a little more abstract than this one, we have the same navy that we have in here, and here we have a smaller motif, so that's great to use. And you can see the pink and the orange in this leaf, in the pink and the orange here, and the pink and the orange in the rest of the paper. One thing you do want to make sure of when you're adding all these different crazy patterns together is that you want to break them up a bit, just like I did breaking up these two different patterns. I've broken up the patterns here by using them behind these little plastic leaf outlines. So we've kind of made them look separated from the page by outlining them. They don't look so much like they're part of a page as, well, they don't look so much as like these two designs are on the same thing as they do that they're complementing each other. I'm not sure how to word it correctly, but the actual design is separated from the other design by this plastic leaf. That's another thing you want to keep in mind when you are using your photos as well. Your photos, especially if they're in color and not in black and white, can tend to compete with a really busy background like this one. So here you can see that I printed out my photos with a white background so that there is something actually separating the photo from the design on the paper. Kind of makes the photo stand up a little bit, and they're not competing with the design on the paper. Okay, so this is the one that I had that was in the gallery. I put together a couple more to show you some ideas for pattern mixing as well. This is one that I put together this morning, and this is from a page of crepe paper as well. This is the same piece of paper cut in half, and again, that's always a great way to do that if you're going to have two different patterns as your background. The colors here are similar. The designs go together. They're part of the same collection, obviously, because they're the same piece of paper, but everything kind of works together. So I use that here. I added a third pattern behind my letters. The letters themselves are kind of breaking up the two patterns, so they're not touching each other with, they're not competing on the page. I know I keep using those same words, but if you can picture, you know, they kind of have their own space. They're not bumped right up against each other. Here I've separated these two patterns with a pattern, with this polka dot pattern, this really small polka dot motif, and the black on here kind of goes with the black and white in the photograph, the black and white polka dots. That all works together to have patterns that can work well on a page together. And let me show you this last example here that I put together. Now these are two of my favorite patterns right here. To use black and white and words especially with another bold, bright color. This yellow is so fantastic, and especially when mixed with the black and white. I added washi tape down the middle here because the slant of these letters kind of made me feel like the paper was closing in on itself. So when I added the washi tape here, it kind of broke that up a little bit, kind of gave my eye a chance to rest so that the words weren't all, you know, flowing in on themselves. I added the washi tape down the middle, added a big bright pink star right in the middle, again to kind of break up the two motifs. And here I've added a third pattern as well. Same pattern that I used behind my letters here. This is from 7 paper. This is the, let's see, this is the front side of that paper. These are the back side, the dots. I've added these down the middle as well. Now, I don't know if you can see here, but I've added those on top of a piece of vellum. That is another great way to add another pattern without having anything compete with each other. I just put that right on top of here. So what you're doing is kind of breaking up that big mess of patterns. Your eye might not really see the vellum when you're looking right at the layout, but it will understand that you're not getting this bright, bold pattern and then another bright, bold pattern right on top of it. Watch here. If I just put the dots right on top of these black and white words, there's a lot going on. It's almost like there's a mistake has been made in the middle of your page. But if you just put that right on top of a piece of vellum, you can kind of see how it blurs out the background a little, lets this sit right on top of it without, again, competing with the rest of the paper. Okay, there you go. So those are just a couple little tips on how to mix patterns, how to mix paper in your layouts. Just remember, you want different motif sizes. If you're using the same motif, excuse me, say that you're using polka dots all over your page, make sure they're of different sizes. You want to use big polka dots with small polka dots. If you do have motifs that are similar in size but different design, make sure you break them up, that they're not touching each other, you know, right next to each other like we did here. We broke this up with the washi tape. Use brighter, bolder colors, but not so many colors that you really have a whole mess of crazy on your page. And if you're going to do that, like I did here, it's always okay to break the rules a little. If you're going to do that, separate those bright, bold patterns from the rest of the paper somehow, either in an outline or maybe even on top of a piece of white cardstock, so that you don't have everything all blended together. Everything's sort of its own little element. That's it for today. I hope that you learned a little something, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.